The 3D camera tracker has received many of the upgrades that Warp Stabilizer VFX did, but it also received one small but really important little new feature I want to show you. In this particular composition, I have a forest walk that has already been tracked with the 3D camera tracker. I'll press F3 to open up the effects control panel. And here you can see all of my various track points. Again, just as with Warp Stabilizer VFX, if some of these points were causing my track to go bad, and I can tell that if I see them wandering when they should be stationary, I could select them, delete them, and the 3D camera tracker will allow me to automatically delete those points across time. In other words, if the 3D camera tracker detects that it has used that same track point for multiple frames, or disappeared, maybe because it was obscured by another object, then reappeared later, it would know to delete that as well. And just like with Warp Stabilizer, don't rely on this auto-delete happening. Scan through your project and make sure you got rid of the offending object throughout your entire clip. But let me get on to this new feature. Now, one of the frustrating things about using the 3D camera tracker is it did not know where the ground was. I mean, you know where the ground is. You can look at a piece of footage like this and say, this is where the ground should be. These points are on the ground or very, very close to the ground because they're going to be offset by leaves, etc. But previously with the 3D camera tracker, if I was then to right-click on this nice little plane and say create null and camera, choose my resulting track null and press P for position, you'll see it has an X, Y, and Z value that's just somewhere in arbitrary space. Particularly Y being our altitude, it's hardly 0, which would be the ground. It's somewhere well below us at 1226. Okay, there's a better way now. I'm going to turn the visibility off on those for now so I can keep track of them. Go back to my 3D camera tracker effect. Choose those same 3 points. Right-click again, and this time say Set Ground Plane and Origin. The 3D camera tracker still cannot tell on its own where the ground is, but you can tell it where the ground is, and it will use that information going forward. So I'll say Set Ground Plane and Origin. It will give me a warning since I've already created a camera and already created points using a different value for the origin. It's going to warn me that those are going to be invalid. In other words, this is something you want to do first in your project. Set the ground plane before you define a camera and before you start defining solids, nulls, text, etc. But since I'm just playing around here, I don't care about the values of that previous null and camera rat, so I'll say OK. Now that I have this plane, which is on the ground, right-click and say create null and camera, the resulting null has a position of 0, 0, 0. It's correctly set where my ground plane is based on my selected points. That's going to make things such as the camera data make a lot more sense. In this case, the camera is at a negative Y, which is above the ground. It's also at a greatly negative Z, which is towards us, back away from that point in space. So again, take advantage of this new feature in After Effects. Choose what you want your ground plane to be, maybe pick a whole bunch of points to define it, right-click, and set your ground plane and origin before you go do anything else.